All right, Kendra, let's call this to order and
Okay.
let's begin.
Let's have at it. Okay. Well, really today is we're really talking about all of the goals that we had on our comprehensive school improvement plan. So that was a big part of MSIP 6 was to submit that plan to the state, which we did. I think you guys remember back in September. And so one of the ways that we've been monitoring all of our goals on that particular plan has been through a software application. And so that's really what I wanted to update you guys about today, was just looking through the lens of all of the different goals that the St. Joe School District set within that comprehensive school improvement program plan that we submitted. What of the goals have we achieved? And that's how our comprehensive school improvement plan, our CSIP, is a living document. It is not something that we use to hold the door open as a doorstop. It is active, and we're constantly monitoring all the goals that we set out. And so just to give you a little glimpse, the one pager that you have, and then this is as recent as last night when it updates, and I can go in there, and so I've made some changes to it, and then it updates with some data. And so even today, a day later, we're at 88% on target versus when I just printed this as recently as yesterday. So that's why this having our comprehensive school improvement program goals within a software system really gives us feedback as to how we're doing and completing those particular goals. So if you look through, this is a very high level. If you remember, our goals, visionary leadership will guide SJSD's continuous school improvement plan. We had some key performance indicators. And keep in mind, this is only May, so we haven't updated all of those. But each one of those is numbered, like 1.1, the St. Joseph School District Board of Education will ensure the implementation and effectiveness of the CSIP monthly. That's what we've been doing since June. So that was one of our key performance indicators. We're not all the way there, but we're 92% complete. The SJSD Board of Education will comply with all ethical, legal, regulatory, and accreditation elements. That's something that we can update. The St. Joe Board of Education and the SJSD administration will enforce policies related to legal and professional ethics equitably, so we're continuing to update that. I always go to Dr. Krause and get some updates there, go to, make sure that I'm on the same page and can get updates there. The board will monitor the effectiveness of the SJSD's mission, vision, and values and enforce and by workforce segment annually. So you may or may not know, we do some surveys. So right now we're in the process of looking through our non-certificated workforce, our support staff. They went through several iterations of surveys, so we can monitor that. What we have found through this process is that the St. Joe School District's mission and vision, even though we've posted it everywhere, even though I've got posters around the room, is something that folks are not easily remembering. And so that's going to be a topic of conversation. So that data has let us know that we need to do some work, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Then we have our Success Ready students. So if you remember, we have our Success Ready Index. We've been monitoring that. If you remember, we have our Social and Emotional Index to talk to you, to talk to the board about the well-being of our students, and we've monitored that through this particular meeting. And so we are on track there. One of the things that was not started this year was the 21st Century Learning Index. In the technology department, they just hired some what we would call instructional technology coaches, and so they're working to define that. So that goal didn't get started this year, but that lets us know that that's something that would be a high priority, because we do need to make sure our kids are getting those skills. Then the SJSD is a happy place to learn and work. So we go through all of those different key performance indicators, and we can update all of those things. One example of that, for example, was our Q12 survey, our employee engagement survey, that was 7% higher than our goal. So things like that have put us in good standing here, but we have other metrics. Like if you look at the one that's red, that's the only critical one that we really have. When you look at the key performance indicators for ensuring that we are at how we measure whether or not the SJSD is a happy place to learn and work. Because I talked to Dr. Krause, and hiring additional staff members, approximately 6 to 9 each year to reduce classroom size and add supports. That was part of a goal from what was promised to the community as a function of the sunset being when we were able to have that not sunset on us, and that was only, what, last year. And so it does not appear as though they're going to be able to meet that particular goal at this time. So that was a critical area. And so that's why I like this program, is because it just highlights the areas that are critical in terms of your comprehensive school improvement program. And it doesn't let you forget what you promised about how money was going to be allocated to different components that you talked to the public about.
Well, it's a great plotting.
Right.
To keep you.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, increase 500 to base salary in 2023. You can see that I changed that to reflect, it was actually 1K that was added. So that was over and beyond what was set as a goal by the finance department. Attract and retain teachers and staff salary and benefits. You can see that I have that marked as 66% right now. While that means that we're on track for this time of year, the jury is still out, because we don't know what our retention rate is going to be. Last year, the retention rate was 80%, which means that we lost 20% of our workforce, which is way outside the industry standard for an educational institution. Now, we're still dealing with a lot of other educational organizations are dealing with the same thing, so that number the standard is likely to increase as well.
Do you have what is the industry standard?
Typically, it's 11%, but I would imagine after the pandemic and things like that, that metric might have moved.
She's just talking about that right now.
And so then we also have one of the things that is in an area where it's off target is partner with strong universities and nonprofit organizations to build a predictable pipeline of diverse, highly skilled new employees. So again, that's something I talked to Dr. Krause about yesterday. So that continues to be a struggle in terms of recruiting staff. So that's something that I'll continue to, and again, the jury's still out. We have not, gone completely through hiring season and people coming and leaving and those kind of things. So we'll have final metrics on that. And I talked again to him about that yesterday as to what was our retention rate and what does it look like for that particular metric.
So Kendra, the 0 there should change, correct?
The
bullet before that?
He does not expect that we're going to be able to hire an additional staff to meet that particular metric.
Who?
Dr. Krause.
We already did.
Well, I talked to him about it yesterday. So.
Yeah, we need to check with Robert on that.
Okay.
Because I think the staff, we're like 17, it's like 17 up. I mean, it's like $7 million difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, I talked to him yesterday about it.
In the classrooms, which is in a different area.
So we'll get clarification on that, but in my conversation with him yesterday, I put that goal in front of him and he said, no, we're not going to be able to meet that.
So we we're hiring, but it's not enough. If
To
we're going
get the
downside
additional
class size.
6 to 9 to reduce classroom size. That's what, I showed him that, and he said, no, I don't believe we'll get there.
Okay, let's get Robert in that conversation, let's have a,
Yeah, and then we can reevaluate that, but that was his response yesterday when I said, are we going to meet this particular
Does
metric?
that go back to where we were trying to reduce down at like the K2 age grade band, or is this across? Do you remember?
It's
what that
simply, this is how it was put out when we got the sunset.
Right.
Was we will hire additional staff members, approximately 6 to 9 each year to reduce classroom size and supports. So that's
So
all
it
that,
was all of everything.
yeah. So
but it says classroom size and supports, and we've hired 11 interventionists, that's a support.
It might be how it's coded.
yeah.
So we must be coding it wrong.
Well, when I talked to Dr. Krause, he told me, no, we weren't gonna be able to meet that. So
Okay, we just need to have a meeting, me and you and Dr. Krause.
because I can't answer the questions you guys were trying to get me to answer.
You should ask it in a different way, and have the same answer.
You're all right, we'll figure it out.
Good job.
I just keep
This is
repeating
why you
myself.
look at the
Do you
data.
make that?
I'm glad I come.
And the answer is.
The same.
Let's play Jeopardy.
I've run this routine a time or two, Dr. Andrews.
Oh, I know you have. You always win.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, so again, one little critical area that we are going to investigate further that we'll find out about. And then the SJSD Communications Department will develop a communication plan that will engage school community and St. Joseph community. And so I know Dr. or Eileen actually developed a plan, and she sent that out early. I think it was in October, a comprehensive plan there. And then we move on to the, regardless of background, all students are success ready. So this is really our equity piece to MSIP 6. Access and Opportunity Index, you guys may recall that we went over that at length in one of our meetings. So yes, we were able to do that. The Success Ready Index, ensure all students meet their annual criteria as measured by the SJSD Success Ready Index gap. If you recall from last month's meeting, we looked at our end of year gap analysis, and we were able to meet our goals. And we were able to actually shorten or reduce some of those gaps. So we were pleased with that. And then the SJSD will allocate facility and staff resources in order to reduce access and opportunity index gap. So through a budgetary process, the way that the business services develops and deploys their budgetary process is very equitable. That was one of the things we highlighted actually in our response to standards documents to the state. The way that they go about it is very much directed at each building and each program and what the needs are. So we were able to complete that. And then the SGSD program evaluation plan and department plan will include an equity audit. So this year, through the program evaluation, which I know we're going to be talking about in the board training session, what the St. Joseph School District's plan and approach to program evaluation is. We actually added an equity component. So this year we will have completed the special education program evaluation, the early learning center program evaluation, the ELD program will also be included in that, the English learning department. And then we did a program evaluation on the assessment program, the professional development program, and the gifted program. So those will all be completed this year, and there is an equity component to each of them that talks about access and opportunity. And so a short example of that would be, for example, in our ELD department, we set some goals in terms of reducing gaps, and we were able to accomplish those gap reductions. So that's one of the other ways that we are able to monitor equity. And are we reducing gaps between different segments, and ensuring that kids are learning in an equitable fashion. So that's the long and the short of this. I do like this program. It's something that we're going to be able to, it's not very expensive, and it's something that I'm going to be able to kind of deploy more through the department lens this year, so that they are able to check on their targets. So Dr. Kraus, for example, can mark his own goals. And so again, that's what's nice about this. And so you can look at this particular software from different lenses. All goals versus organizational goals. Organizational goals are very much ones that are very much about what we're doing as an organization. All goals are going to also include departmental goals. So we can look at it through that lens as well. So what it does is it allows us to better understand how all of, for lack of a better way of putting this, all the chains are all pulling in the same direction. So that the department goals are tied to the CSIP goals, the building goals are tied to the department goals, and so you're going to have different iterations of those goals because you're going to have to do different work and have different strategies at different levels to get the main work done that we're trying to achieve. And so this, the more we utilize this, again, it ensures that from a systematic approach, that we're really being strategic and being strategic thinkers in how we effectuate our goals and continue to monitor them. And so that's why this approach, I believe, is a good one for planning, you know, just being very strategic in planning. So do you have,
before you get further,
Yeah.
would you backtrack to the Success Ready and tell me about the gifted program? Are there things that you've tweaked? Is there anything you had to adjust for equity or?
Well, yes, and so, and I think I had presented some metrics, and I can resend those to you, but we started back in 2018 with a very full-blown program evaluation of the gifted program in the St. Joe School District. And amongst other things, we realized that our gifted population did not reflect the St. Joseph School District population. So we did a lot with our identification. We submitted new plans to the state. And in addition to that, well, an example would be we started giving a nonverbal IQ test because kids that are not necessarily in situations where verbal you know, verbiage is used at a high level and those kinds of things. We just wanted to figure out if kids have these IQs in every neighborhood, and they do. And so that we have really made sure that our gifted program reflects that. But in addition to that, one of the things that the program evaluation, and this was done from the University of Virginia, from their Gifted Center of Education, they recommended a K-2 talent development program. And so we instituted that this year at Coleman. And so we are working with kids in K-1 too, because what we found in our population is, and this is not solely us, otherwise we would have been able to get this existing model, is that sometimes that gifted potential, can go latent, especially in buildings where the focus is on trying to get kids up to grade level. What happens when they're already on grade level? And so they
kind of just.
And it works mostly through mathematics, and so we've seen some good success with that program. And that program goes into summer because the model that we're using has an enrichment program for those kids in the summer. And so it's very grounded in math and very grounded in science and very grounded in relevancy. So they'll be doing a lot of projects that are about St. Joseph and, you know, river water quality, streams, lots of data collection, those kind of things. And a lot of times what we found is students in those populations may not have those experiences. And so they'll be doing that. So that has been good.
I love it that you include their own environment
Mhm.
and not something
Yeah, it has to be
1,000
relevant.
miles away.
Yeah, it has to be relevant.
Awesome.
So, so moving on, so this is kind of where we are. We're not done yet. We don't start our new fiscal year till July, and so we are going to continue to track these goals all the way to the end, and some of them we can't really track until the very end. So that's something that we're going to continue to do, so we can certainly provide updates there. So moving on to, okay, so we're almost to the end of this, so what's the next with the St. Joseph School District comprehensive or school improvement program? We really are trying to, as I mentioned, trying to get it on a page, because we can have this big elaborate plan and all this software and all this stuff, but if we can't communicate it to our community and to our staff, then it really doesn't do much good for us as an organization not to know what our north is, where are we pointing, and how are we trying to get there. So really what we did some work on this, but this is all going to be subject to review. So we're really at a starting place, because we were essentially in a position last year. It was hurry up. We've been selected to be, cycle 1 of CSIP under MSIP 6, and so that work, great, we did that, but now how do we take that work and take it back to our community? We have the Vision Forward information, and which really informed our approach to the continuous school improvement plan, but how do we take this back to our community, our staff, our students, our board members, and administrators, and think through some things. Because a weakness that we did discover is that, again, folks can't remember our mission and vision. And while on its face that may sound silly, it really is important as an organization, like for law enforcement, to serve and protect. You can't really forget that one. So how do we have something that we know what we're about? What's our mission? What's our vision? What are we trying to do? And so that's one of the things that through the lens of what I'm going to show you guys here in just a little bit will be an approach to next year, and how might we kind of refine this and refine it in a way in which it's helpful to us as an organization and helpful to our culture and our climate and support our academic goals. And so just right off the bat, we kind of consolidated some things, and from a leadership perspective, we really, because that was part of our CSIP leadership, so that's a very important component to the plan. And then combining equity and academics, so instead of having success-ready students and then a separate category for success-ready all students, where we're looking at gaps, just combining those things. And then through the lens of the St. Joseph School District is a happy place to learn and work, it really comes down to our culture and our systems. Our human resources department, our operations department, our business services department, how do they work together to optimize the human resources in terms of being in a resource, and our actual capital resources, and our physical resources. How do we optimize that for the most important thing, which is teaching and learning? And so those are the components that can make this a little easier. You're not trying to remember 9 different things. And so that's kind of the goal, is how do we get this plan on the page? How do we get it more facing the community, staff facing, and such that our administrators are well acquainted with it, and it's a driver. It's not just, again, a doorstop. So for next year, the plan really is to create a CSIP team and develop a schedule. So the folks that we would like to see on this particular team And we're not talking vision forward, we're talking, 20 folks that can come together, probably more than 20, but, and begin to think through the lens of some existing work. So we're not starting from scratch. We've got vision forward. We've had the MSIP 6 work. We've tried to consolidate and learn some things this year. So beginning to focus in on that with one of the key outcomes being mission and vision for the St. Joe School District. And not changing the grounding that we have in vision forward in this work, but simply through the lens of capturing it so that it's something that we can remember as an organization and it can guide our work. Because right now our mission and vision is not substantially guiding our work because no one can remember it. And I know I keep saying that.
You're right.
But I'm well acquainted with it and sometimes I can't remember it. So that's really what we would do. And then the process would be to review the vision, mission, and values. I think people can remember the values. And then we would identify as a group who is the St. Joseph School District's key customers. Who are they? And identify stakeholders, customer requirements. So once we know who our customer is, what are their key requirements? What are the things that they absolutely cannot do without, that they would have expectations from the schools for their children? Evaluate the current performance. We can easily do that. We now know that we can easily identify how we're doing with the CSIP, whether that's through the balanced scorecard or goal attainment through the software system. Evaluate current performance. Examine environmental shifts. So we do have some environmental shifts and we have to be keenly aware of those environmental shifts. And we would do a SWOT analysis, so we would look at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and threats to the St. Joe School District. Identify strategic advantages and strategic challenges, and develop strategic goals. So again, we're not going to be reinventing the wheel because we have a strong base, but how might we refine some of those critical pieces? So the meeting topics and approaches, so this is kind of what I've initially put together. So these meetings, initially thinking noise comments, likely to be 5:30 in the afternoon, like we would have a board meeting so that folks, parents, people can come to these things. So we would just have a CSIP process overview. Then September 20th, we would do the SWOT analysis, strategic advantages and challenges. October 4th, refining advantages and challenges, and then grouping themes. Then October 18th, narrowing the themes, having a little work time, review graphic design elements, define core values and key words. In other words, we needed, to make sure we were all speaking in the same terminology. Again, which is creating a more cohesive organization. And then there would be a winter presentation to the board as to progress. And so in this way, the CSIP becomes fortified, if you will, and stronger, so that it again provides that direction and that cohesiveness across the district and is clear to the community. Then we can likely be able to expand its time frame. So it's not a 1-year CSIP. Always capable of refining it, but how might this look for the next 3 years or potentially 4 years? So just initially, right now, going into this work, just looking at it from the lens of, our goal is going to be our vision. So right now, that's preparing students for success in a complex and changing world. And how do we measure that? We have our Success Ready Index that monitors all the way from kindergarten readiness to where do they go after they leave us. Objective 1 is, of course, going to be our equity and academics. And that includes implementing key elements of the SJSD's approach to teaching and learning for all students. So again, that's what we should be really good at. That should be our core competency. Objective 2, culture and systems, create an environment where all members of the SJSD school community are empowered agents of change. And objective 3, visionary leadership, optimize the school district's human and financial measures and address facilities equitably to maximize learning by removing barriers. So things of that nature, thinking through the lens of those 3 key things that we see on this particular page. And these are garnered from a lot of the work that's been done this year, all the way from the facilities committee to things that we've gone through in our department planning, in our academic services planning, so and some of the improvements we've seen to culture. So just trying to capitalize on some of that work and as we put this out. So then we would have key measures. So for equity and academics, we're going to have our Access and Opportunity Index and our Success Ready Index. So not only how successful are our kids being, we have to couple that with their access and opportunity. So we have several strategies for that. And we are working hard right now to stand up a more comprehensive, multi-tier system of supports for all of our students. So we're working on getting that stood up in academic services. There's an equity audit I know that the school district is working on, and review educational practices regarding culturally responsive approaches. I know that's something that Ms. Studer is working on and has been working on with instructional coaches and teachers. And then reevaluating our Access and Opportunity Index and collect student-focused qualitative data on belonging. So that's one of our aims, to continue to collect voices in terms of belonging. That's one of the things that our Access and Opportunity Index revealed to us this year is that we had some lower rates of students feeling like this is a good place for me, or I belong here, and so how do we better understand that? And then lastly, our cultures and systems. Again, deploying an MTSS system. You're going to see that over and over again because that is very important that we have that approach and it's consistent across the district so that students that are receiving intervention are getting that intervention, and then if that student goes to a different school, that intervention continues. And then explore system-wide discipline model focused on restorative practices. That's something that we're already doing. Consider comprehensive staff and student well-being plan. I know Human Resources is keenly focused on a wellness plan. And then potentially participate. DESE is started to roll out their social and emotional curriculum at the state level, and I guess we thought it was going to be on hold for a long time, but it's not going to roll for another year, but they have some potential opportunities to participate and some feedback and better understanding. I know that that's something that Dr. McGinnis is looking at and has been looking at, and Mrs. Studer has been looking at, so those pieces potentially could be implemented by 2024. And again, back to the equity audit, again, that can help all of these goals. And then we're working on developing a better community-wide survey. I think that's something that we saw in the balanced scorecard this year was that our community-wide survey was just not very good. And it only captured a small voice. That was white females.
What were the factors that were not good about it?
That we only captured one segment of the population. That was the factor.
How did it go out?
Email.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So we have we met with some folks yesterday to try to improve that process and approach. How do we reach our Chiquis speaking population? How do we reach our Hispanic population?
How many respondents did you have?
It was a good response rate, and I could get that. I sent that out to you guys after that meeting. I can't remember, but I had thought it wasn't as good a response rate as it was. but I'll get that to you.
Later.
Well, it's super easy. It's super easy. But it was only one segment of the population. And so we're talking about how we can better understand, how we can get, some of it might be just focus groups that we do instead of trying to survey groups, if that's easier. We talked about how sometimes you can send a survey out to a population and they may be able to speak it, but they don't necessarily know how to read it. And so we've talked about that, met with Eileen about that yesterday, so we've got some plans there. So that is kind of, oh, and then the leadership piece. So again, highly qualified staff is big for us. And right now, if you look on our balanced scorecard, we are not where we need to be in terms of highly qualified staff. Again, the equity audit, again, this would apply to leadership, develop comprehensive long-range facilities plan. I think that's definitely in the works. And improve intentionality of budgetary process through horizon and strategic challenges perspective to address environmental shifts and underutilized and aging structures, which I know has been a big topic of conversation. So those are the pieces really that we'll be refining, looking at, having discussions through the fall and the winter, and then developing something that has more of the staff and the administrators and the board members, and you guys, some of you have been very intimately involved in this process, and so that this is something that has everyone's fingerprints in it, because if it's something that's a guiding force, then we really need to fortify it and make it more substantive.
So will that CSIP team, and through that process through the fall, will you just tie in like different initiatives underneath each of these strategies, or like what will they actually be building? Like the action items?
Yeah, essentially, if you go back up to this piece, it's really, they're going to be looking at what's existing through the lens of all of these different activities.
What's already there, okay.
Yeah. And then what they'll be able to do is really refine it. Some of it they may be like, this works, this doesn't. How can we refine some of these things? And are there additional measures? Are there additional concerns? Those kinds of things. Yeah, so that we can narrow it down. Because again, if it's not consolidated down, then it can't be very community facing or really staff facing, where you can remember off the top of your head, these are the things we're focused on. This is how we're going to measure it. Here's our mission and here's our values, and we link arms to get that work done.
Yeah, it's not info friendly.
Yeah.
Because it's just so
Yeah,
broad.
it's broad. And so that's why we have things like this that you can get deep into the weeds on, and we have things like, you know, this where it's a one-pager and that's it. So, because it's a lot of deep work, but it really has to be communicated at a very
It's concise.
high level.
I like that.
Yeah.
You can verbalize this, where the other
Yeah, it's just a lot. So, and really, I think that is really all I had planned for you guys today. I don't know if you have any questions of me, but I'm happy to get that response rate, but it's going to be better next year.
To me, I like the programs because it pinpoints the areas where we need to work.
Yes.
So I like that, but then to encourage follow through.
Yes.
So it's one thing to pinpoint it, but if you don't follow through, it doesn't do any good.
Right. Well, and it lets you know where you're just not meeting the mark.
Right.
But it also uncovers things where you met the mark and you're a little surprised. So,
True.
so I think those things are good.
Well, I like the one pager. I like the looks. So I don't have any questions. Do you?
Okay.
All right, then
Thank you.
I think we're adjourned.
Good job, Kim.
Thank you.